back. JR here with the continuation of our Life is Strange franchise tier list here. In our last episode, why in the world is this? Oh, there you go. Okay, now it's gone. Hey. In our last episode, we finished off True Colors, so we placed all of True Colors here with the last couple of episodes being A rank here, and we did the wavelengths episode for Steph. So we got Steph in A rank here, the short but sweet little DLC. And we started Double Exposure, which marked the return of Max from the original game as a main playable character. So we did the first chapter of that, and we placed that in A rank here. So we will be seeing how much of the rest of Double Exposure we can get through here. Okay. So we will jump into, what was it, chapter 2 of Double Exposure. So when we last left at the end of chapter 1, Max just discovered her powers to jump into a parallel world timeline where the only real difference is Safi is alive. So instead of her being killed, she is alive. So there's that. So right now Max jumped into the other timeline at the end of the first chapter. So we are going to be beginning this chapter 2 here, in the Safi being alive timeline. So our chapter begins with Max in a little I guess little I don't think they were eating, but a conversation with Safi and her mother Yasmin. All three of them sitting in the Snapping Turtle bar, and they're pretty much talking about the book deal and stuff that Safi has pending at the moment. So they're pretty much going through that. You're pretty much trying to get a feel for the dynamic between Safi and her mother. So you see a little bit of a motherly thing, and Safi being a little about it. So you can kind of already get the feeling that Yasmin is like the type of mom that's kind of a little uh like hanging over their kid a little too much. And Safi clearly is like the hey stop smothering me type of thing. So we go through that. We're waiting for Yasmin is waiting for she ordered some drinks for them, and she's waiting for the drinks. And it turns out that uh so Max is like, okay, let me go because I'm trying to figure things out. Because in her mind, Max is trying to figure things out about this timeline right now. So she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna take this opportunity to like explore around and figure things out." So so she's um so she's like, "I'll go find out what's going on with the drinks." So at this point, you can get up and start like exploring the bar a little bit. Um, you could already tell some differences that are kind of going on a little bit. You Amanda's also at the bar, so you can kind of talk to her, and you figure out from her that you still talked and everything, like in the earlier scene with when Safi and Max were at the bar, in the last chapter. So Max still was encouraged by Safi to go talk to Amanda and everything. So that that part still happened and still took place. There was still a thing of meeting up between Amanda and Max, but the main difference is that Amanda didn't like they weren't able to meet up because Max I believe she like for whatever reason they weren't able to meet up and stuff. So Max gets is like, oh, because Max herself does not have any memory about what happened prior to her jumping um, into this timeline. So hence why she's kind of trying to ask a little questions from people to try to catch herself up and see what this version of Max was doing. So it's kind of a parallel from when from the original game when Max would go into the pictures and jumping back in time in those pictures and stuff and needing to kind of figure out what's going on. And then when she would jump back into her normal timeline, um she would need like someone to kind of catch her up on what's been going on, cuz just like in the original game with this timeline jumping powers, uh, the time is running normally. So it's not like everything stops when Max jumps back and forth. So everything keeps going regardless. So just like in the original game when Max uh jumped back from the Chloe in a wheelchair timeline, that when they did the little montage thing, you saw a little picture of Max and Chloe bringing up the wooden board up to Chloe's room, even though clearly um, what we played was back in an alternate timeline, but it goes to show that Max is still that in that case Max's body was still in the other timeline and still kind of, I guess, on autopilot or something. Like she kind of leaves a bit of her consciousness when she jumped into alternate timelines, so her body and stuff would still interact and still do things while she's gone. But when she jumped back, it's like whatever version of her was on autopilot while she was gone kind of gets overwritten by original consciousness Max coming back. So that's still a thing, but there's a big difference because um she Max also hears like this like humming sound while she's in the bar, so she can go by, because this introduces the mechanic now where she can go by the like the bathroom area, which is a weird placement for this mechanic, because what it is when you go there, there's like this, Max can see like this little thing of like colors and stuff like in the air, and when you interact with it, it you can kind of do what she did at the end of chapter 1, where she kind of like rips a doorway into the other timeline and can go through. So now we introduce the concept now where there are certain points in the throughout the environments that you're going to be in where there will be these specific little areas where you can jump back and forth between both timelines. Which also is a big difference here, where, like in the original game, when she would make new timelines and be in them and jump back and forth, um, where her consciousness was the only thing that went, and her physical body was still there doing things. In this case, she kind of blinks out of existence when she crosses both timelines. So there isn't another Max in the other timeline when she's jumping back and forth. So there will be instances where you interact with certain people, and then you kind of jump out, and then it's like you kind of just disappeared out of thin air. So that's pretty much what it's like. So that's the big difference, is that Max goes in and out and kind of disappears from each timeline. And the weird part about specifically the bar's placement of having that little doorway by by the bathrooms is is why why would you that's not one, that's not a very secret place. Like Max is still trying to hide her like abilities and stuff from people finding out like what she can do. So why that placement would be right in front of bathrooms, which people are going to be going back and forth through, logically speaking, like people would see you poofing in and out of existence. So I don't, especially when there's also next to the bathrooms, there's seating areas where you can sit down and eat and drink and whatnot. There's sitting areas also next to the bar, next to the bathrooms. I mean, so there's like a lot of ways that a bunch of people could just be there and see her doing this. So which there are, because I'm addressing it now, but there are a pretty much almost every instance of these little openings where you jump back and forth. Most of them are displayed very out in the open and is like girl, anyone can see you. And in some cases there are NPCs that are clearly around you that can see you do this. But you know, they're NPCs, so they never acknowledge the game mechanics, so it's kind of, it's very weird that, you know, like I think it would have been a lot better if it definitely would have been a lot better if they put these openings in more hidden places. Like I do get why they put it, because in some areas there's um multiple points that you could jump in and out of. Like for instance, in the courtyard, in the front yard of the school, there's like, I believe two, is it two openings? I believe it's two openings. Um, that you could jump between, and they put them like on the opposite ends of the area because the area is kind of big. Like it's one of the courtyard areas, like the biggest area um in the game, so they have to kind of put multiple things so that way you're not like running around in a circle jumping and then having to jump, go all the way over here to do something, and then having to go all the way back just to jump back. Because from a gameplay mechanic perspective, it you do have to have multiple um, areas, especially in big places, because you don't want to, you know, annoy the players so much in having to do a lot of running around back and forth. Um, but there are certain smaller areas where you're gonna be in that do have multiple like multiple points, but they do but mostly that's because there's some sort of puzzle that you have to do to progress things that require you to constantly jump back and forth. So most of the time, even though the areas will be small. They'll put multiple points where you can jump, so that way it's a lot more convenient and easy for you to do certain puzzles and stuff. So so that's pretty much how that goes. So in any case, you when you jump to the because this once you're able to jump back and forth now at the bar, there is a little puzzle that you have to do here. Um, eventually, that you have to do, but you also see the visual differences that you can see between both timelines, because here at the bar, in the Safi being alive timeline, uh the lights in the bar are a lot more brighter, and there's Christmas decorations like all over the bar, because they're getting ready to have their annual like Krampus themed Christmas party that they're going to be doing. So so it's a lot more of a happy, upbeat environment. And then when you go to the original timeline where Safi's dead, you the lighting in the bar is a lot more like subdued, and there's no Christmas decorations or anything, because in light of Safi's murder and everything, they canceled like the Krampus party and everything, so none of that is happening. So the Christmas decorations is pretty much a constant theme of the Safi alive timeline, when you're like going to the main campus with the school. Like, you'll see decorations and stuff like around. So it's one of those visual things that the game to help you visually differentiate between both timelines, because the game has to do like several of those things, because they even have the color distinction too, where like you saw in the like you would see in the first chapter at the end, when Max is discovers the like pulse ability, where she could kind of see like outlines of the other timeline, and where certain people are at that exact moment in the other timelines, with the Moses thing, with the yellow Moses apparition that she saw at the end. Um, that's the difference that you're going to use with the pulse ability, to like figure out where certain people are at any given time and things like that. Because the yellow, because the yellow outline is for the Safi being alive, and you will see the same thing with the Safi being dead, but being represented by blue outlines. So you have your yellow and then your blue colors to differentiate further both timelines that you're jumping around with. And even in you also have a blatantly stated option too, because this part you can turn on and off in the settings if you want it to be more immersive and try to challenge yourself in remembering which timeline you're in. Is every time you jump on the top of the screen, right above like the middle of the screen, like right here, uh, it will display um, in words literally stay alive and dead depending on the timeline you're jumping into. So there's a lot of different ways that Deck Nine mechanically put into the game to help people not get lost in which timeline you're in. And there's also instances in various conversations where you're talking to the same person across both timelines where certain dialogue options will be given to you where you will mention something that happened in the other timeline and can like confuse the other person or make or have certain consequences for the other person for telling them things that they don't know that you know or that they told you but in the other timeline and things like that. So it's another little way of trying to help you avoid certain like those instances a little bit. But yeah. So after um pretending to check about the drinks and stuff, um excuse me. Excuse me again. Whew. You will go back to Safi and her mother and stuff. Um Yasmin will have to eventually leave. So now you're left with just Max and Safi together, and then Safi um have a little conversation with Max, and she'll talk about like her day has not really been the best, and obviously Max is like, okay, so like what happened, and she'll show her tell her and show her a picture of somebody threw a cow skull through her front car window. Um, she wasn't. I believe she wasn't in the car when they did it, but she pretty much like found her car that way, so that kind of ruined some stuff. And then Safi initially is kind of putting it off as like some like prank or something, but Max obviously since she knows Safi gets murdered in the other timeline, Max is more suspicious of this, and she's like, "Are you sure that it's like some harmless prank? It could be, something more dangerous." And Safi's initially like just brushing it off. Max kind of looks at the photo a little bit and is like, I could almost make out a name or something that's on that cow skull. And Max also says that it looks familiar, and Safi's like, it should look familiar. It's the cow skull that's usually always hanging here at the bar. And then she points at where it would be, and obviously it's not there. So 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 Max is like, So obviously now Max is starting to do her investigating. In the meantime, Safi pretty much sees herself out because she's like, I gotta do some stuff. We'll meet up later and whatnot, right? So Safi leaves. So now Max can do a little investigating on what's going on, because Max has a feeling that, like, if there's stuff in this timeline that are pretty much the same, then most likely whoever murdered Safi is most likely still around, and potentially is still gonna go after Safi anyway. So so now Max is just gonna try to see if she could figure out who who murdered Safi, because theoretically whoever murdered Safi in the other timeline is gonna be the same killer regardless of which timeline she's in anyway. But so now your first clue is obviously the cow skull. So you could figure out go to Amanda and ask about the cow skull. She'll pretty much tell you. I'll give you a time frame of when theoretically the cow skull was taken. Pretty much, she kind of, when she came to open the bar, it was already missing. Like, she found it missing, and you could also kind of tell her about it being used to break through Safi's front car window. Um, whether you want to do that or not is kind of your choice, because now that the door is open to finding out who the murderer is, kind of everyone can be a suspect at this point. So so you can kind of play Max as kind of a little paranoid a little bit, and not willing to share like information with certain people if you want. So in any case, now you got your first little puzzle to do. So you can go into the dead timeline and find that the cow skull is still on the wall. So now you got to figure out how to get this cow skull off the wall, so that way Max can read the name that she vaguely was able to make out on the picture that Safi showed her. And how you do this is, like I explained earlier, where the game is going to make you jump between timelines to do things. Because you got to figure out to get a little something to climb up to get the cow skull down. And you could use your pulse ability to, keep track of what's going on in both timelines. And you could either find out that way, or if you're observant enough, you would have already seen in the Alive timeline that there was a group of students that were fixing up a tree, putting decorations on a tree, and they actually have a little step ladder that they're using. So you can go back to that timeline, take the step ladder, which is which yet again video game logic is she took a step ladder and it kind of disappeared into the ether and somehow she still has it on her, which is pretty funny. But it also works. It also works just like how similar to how it was in the original Life is Strange game, where objects that Max takes and interacts with go with her from place to place. Uh, this game doesn't really uh, specify if objects um, get duplicated necessarily, because we never really see two of the same objects from both timelines like in the same thing together, really. So it never really definitively states like when Max is taking things from one place to another, are there just duplicate things there? Because there's never an instance where Max takes the thing back. So it's assumed that I guess the dead timeline now has two step ladders now. so, uh, so yeah, so you take the step ladder, you go to the dead timeline, you get the cow skull off the wall, and you examine it, you turn it over, and there's a name inscribed on it, and it reads, and it has Lucas's name written on it. So, now Lucas becomes a prime suspect now because it was his cow skull that was used to break through the window. So with that information, now we can leave the bar, go to the school, and try to find Lucas and see if we can gain some information from him, very subtly and sneakily. so you go to the school, and you also run into, when you're getting to the faculty offices area, you get run into Gwen, and Gwen, like checking in on her, how is she holding up and stuff, and your conversation gets interrupted with Gwen getting a phone call. So she's on the phone. She kind of sees herself a little out, and goes on and takes the phone call, but you could still like kind of hear. Well, Max can kind of still hear like what she's saying, and obviously the player is able to fully hear what she's saying. And she's telling whoever she's talking with on the phone, telling them that they shouldn't be calling her and stuff, and saying that okay, did they find anything and things like that. So now Gwen is starting to become a suspicious person now, because now she's talking suspiciously with somebody on the phone, and is making herself seem like a co-conspirator or something in this thing. So while Max is trying to discreetly overhear the conversation, Max gets interrupted by Loretta. So now you're gonna actually have your first real interaction with Loretta instead of just hearing her and seeing her in the background from in the first chapter. So she pretty much is like, hey Max, like what you're doing and whatnot, and you can you're like, oh, you startled me and stuff like that, and you can figure out the and Loretta's not dumb. Like already she already knows that you're kind of eavesdropping on Gwen's phone call that she's having. So you can so Loretta kind of is talking normally, and then you can she'll ask you if she can ask you some like questions and stuff, right? And pretty much it's like, okay, whatever, right? And then it's at that point she immediately switches on her like journalist um mode, cuz she whoops out her little voice recording like mic, like the like a little voice recording mic that like journalists and certain people, if you're trying to record like audio and stuff specifically more clearly and stuff, you use it. It's kind of like a boxy little thing, but either way, you she's pretty much like now going into like full on like journalist interview mode. So now she's asking questions about Safi's murder, if Max thinks it's like suicide, cause that's like the theory that's being gossiped about is that it was a suicide. Um, and it kind of gets related back to another student many years ago, long before Max even came to the school. That this former student named Maya was committed suicide, which you kind of get her name you can find out in the first chapter, because there is a, not the suicide part that she did, but in the courtyard, in the front yard of the school, there's a, you could see a tree, and it has like a dedication like thing on where the tree is, and you can read it, you could examine it and read it, and it does state that the tree was planted in memory of Maya. So that's like a little hint of foreshadowing that they showed in the first chapter. But now, um, they're hold on, be right back. Okay. So, ah, uh, so, so now, um, so now Maya is gonna start being a a thing. Um, now, but this is her first mention by characters themselves, and then Loretta also brings up that nepotism, where because where because Yasmin is in the principal of the school, that she gives Safi like preferential like treatment and opportunities that regular students would have to like jump through hoops and go through a lot to get. So there's that. Um, Max um, obviously can't um, speak to that, but she does say that hey, I was Safi's friend long enough that I don't believe she would want that. She would want to be handed things. Um um so she could Loretta can press for more information. Um you can kind of cut off this conversation if you want, but Loretta also makes it clear that Max, if you're not willing to talk to me and like answer my questions, then I could find someone else to answer them, like Gwen. Um, and during the conversation, Gwen will like leave because she tells the person she's talking with on the phone that things are getting a little noisy. So let me go to a place where it's quieter and we can talk clearly. So Gwen has already like left, which I believe she went to her office. So it's not like she went far, far, but she just went to her office. At least that way she could close the office door and have privacy and stuff. But yeah, so she so Loretta can uh so Max can continue the questions and avoid Loretta from going to talk to Gwen. But if you do like call her bluff and uh, let her go try to talk to Gwen, she'll knock on Gwen's office door. Gwen will answer the door, clearly annoyed because she's still, I believe, presumably she's still on the phone with who she's on the phone with. I don't believe she has the phone in her hands. Like she probably just left it like on her desk or something. But she pretty much like kind of scolds Loretta and is pretty much like not gonna answer any of her questions and stuff, and kind of like Loretta pretty much leaves out of embarrassment and stuff like that. So there's that. which, if Max does do that, it also kind of sours further interactions that you have with Loretta later. So, so yet again, what you choose to do with certain people and with certain and do with certain say to certain people will kind of color how certain characters uh, react to you, pretty much. Um, uh, is it in this episode? Yeah, it is in this episode, but it's towards the end. Um, but yeah, in but so so now you go to you you can go to the court. Ooh, excuse me. Ooh, excuse me again. Woo. Now you can go to the um go to talk to uh Lucas now. Because Lucas isn't in his office. He's over by the where the cafe is. So you can go over there and talk to him and pretty much he's, you know, his same little pompous self. He it gets a little confusing because I'm trying to remember where he I'm trying to remember where he goes. Um, cause there's a thing with Lucas that you're gonna have to jump between both things. Um, he, cause you talk to him, and then which his initial thing with Max depends on what you did uh, with the whole little memorial thing by the statue in the first chapter. So so if you were like nicer to him or more confrontational to him and things like that, like his initial response will reflect uh what you did. So so he'll pretty much respond to that. You find that he has like books and stuff that he's like has to write like as Is that this Lucas or the other world Lucas? But the point is, you can get like a book from him. It has the cow skull as the cover of the book because it's supposed to be the book that he got famous over. So now you have you he'll because he's so egotistical, he'll give you like a signed copy of the book for free. Like you could take it, um, which is also good because you could use. Not that you do it in the actual game, but Max can do it like off. I believe it's implied that she does it off camera, where she can kind of go through the book and like read through it and stuff to kind of get an idea of you know what Lucas wrote and things like that. Um, so eventually, Lucas, um, alive alive world Lucas gets a phone call, and it turns out to be through the conversation you're hearing, it turns out to be his wife, his wife or ex-wife. But either way, and they're like having a like argument and stuff on the phone in relation to Lucas's son and whatnot. Uh, what specifically about Lucas's son, we will find out in a minute. But before you get interrupted, you notice that he has like a suitcase open in the in front of him. So there's certain things there, and Max can comment that she notices some suspicious paperwork that's that's in the suitcase. But once Lucas gets the phone call, uh, he immediately closes the briefcase, and locks it, and goes off to the corner to, take the phone call. Um, which you can kind of pretty much overhear the whole phone call. Like you could walk over to where he is and just listen to the thing. Um, Hence why we know the whole like argument thing and stuff related to his son and everything that's going on. Like you could find out more about that by overhearing the conversation a little bit. But we get bigger details in a minute. But so now Max is like, okay, I um need to figure out uh how to get into that briefcase, because there could be some vital information in there that I need to figure out. So you you'll jump over to the dead timeline, and you also find Lucas there in the same spot. Um, Correction, the incident with the memorial thing, you'll pretty much you have that conversation with this Lucas, the dead world Lucas. So, cause see, look, even I'm getting confused, cause it's like the alive timeline Lucas. You didn't, none of that happened because Safi's alive. So, but in any case, you do that with the talk to dead Lucas, dead world Lucas, which isn't a big conversation. It's pretty short. Um, but you notice that the key is inside, because he has the same briefcase on the table, and the key is inside, is, in the lock of the briefcase. So it's like, oh, the key is out in the open. He doesn't have it in his pocket or anything. So now you need to figure out a way to get him to leave the table and go to and you can snatch the key out of the briefcase. Because remember, the information you're trying to get is from Alive World Lucas, not the Dead World Lucas. So what's in the Dead World Lucas's briefcase doesn't really matter. So you're trying to get to the Alive one. So what you do is, Dead World Lucas has put up a standee of himself in the gallery area of the university, which is where they're sitting at, because how it is that the teacher offices the are on like well, if I was okay, based on how this camera is set up and how you're seeing me, it would be on like this end of the area, and then in the middle of the area is like where the gallery area is, which is also where they set up like the tables and stuff, that where you can like sit and stuff. And then at the other end, all the way on the other end, is where the little cafe area is. So the little standee is set up like kind of right behind where his the table that Lucas is sitting, the standee is kind of like right behind him. So what you can do is Max can see that, like, okay, since Lucas is so full of himself and very like vain and whatnot, like he since he loves himself so much, it's like, okay, if I can mess with the standee, like deface the standee, I could point that out to him, and that will definitely make him like get up and go over to it. So, and I could take that opportunity to take the key. So pretty much you have to find something to deface the thing. So you pretty much go to the cafe area, and the cafe area has like a marker, like that's just sitting on top of it. So you could take that marker and pretty much draw something on the standee to make him leave. So you have a choice whether to draw him with like devil features, or I think you could also like give the standee like a black eye or something. But the point is, you draw whatever on it. Which, a funny little tidbit is, when Max gets the marker, she even makes a comment of since she's gonna since she's gonna use the marker to mark the standee, that she's gonna channel her inner Chloe, which is both a reference to the original game, because in Chloe's room and in Chloe's pickup truck, you can see that she used a marker to like to draw different things and write different like phrases and words and stuff on like walls and things like that. So, and obviously, two Before the Storm specifically, where the main collectible in that game is Chloe using her marker to like graffiti and mark different things. But Max wouldn't know about that specifically, the Before the Storm part. So specifically for her, it's more of an observant reference that she noticed because of the markings and stuff Chloe left around the place. So that's pretty cute. Cause Max even smiles, and the way she says it is kind of like, uh, it's kind of adorable. So it's like, oh, at least in that instance, she's remembering Chloe in a more positive way and not in a like sad way. Like usually when she's remembering um like memories and stuff from the first game, even if they're like really happy and positive, usually Max always turns it around and kind of gets mopey and depressed about it. So it's nice that at least with this reference, it's 100% just happy and there's no like sad downturn at the end. So you do that with the standee. You tell Lucas, and Lucas goes Lucas goes to check the standee and stuff, and is like, oh, who would mess up my like little cardboard cutout here. But in any case, Max takes the key, and then now you could jump back to the alive timeline, and Lucas is still on the phone, so you can go to the briefcase and use the key you took and unlock the briefcase. And you unlock the briefcase, and you look through the papers and stuff, like the stuff that's in it, and you find a a permit and some purchases of a gun that Lucas has, and bullets, and that he like went to the firing range and whatnot and stuff like that. So obviously making Lucas even more suspicious, because now it's like, okay, we know this guy like has a murder weapon because we know Safi was shot. So it's like, okay, now we know someone that actually has a gun, and someone who has a antagonistic relationship with Safi, which was mutually antagonistic, like they both didn't like each other. Why specifically they didn't like each other will get revealed later. Kind of much later. Like I believe like chapter 4 later. So there's still a ways to go before that. So yeah, so Safi, so Lucas gets um before that, one of the other things you also see like a timeline of like his schedule, like where he's been, what he's been doing. And so I believe Max is able to rule out that um that Lucas was the one that that no, I think that's chapter 3. Um was specifically the one that threw the cow skull through the windshield, cuz I believe uh the time frame that Safi estimated that the thing that the cow skull thing was done, I believe Lucas was somewhere else according to like the his schedule thing. So that kind of rules him out. But yet again, he has a gun, so that still makes him like a suspect. Um, Plus, we also know that Gwen was talking with someone suspiciously on the phone. So we could potentially be dealing with multiple people in this scenario and not just one person. So there's that. There's also a he also has a restraining order for Safi in the briefcase, which is the big thing that you find. And Max is also like kind of is like taking pictures of the stuff because obviously she can't take it because Lucas would know it's missing. So Max is just taking some good pictures of these things so she can reference them as evidence and stuff like as she's finding out more clues and trying to piece things together. So she so while she's doing that, when she takes the picture of the restraining order, that's when Lucas has finished his phone call, and comes back to the table and sees that she just took a picture of the restraining order, and he mentions to Max like you can't show that to Safi. Don't show that to her. And then it's at that point where Lucas is like, okay, before you do anything, let me explain. And then it's at that point that Max is like, okay, and they both sit back down at the table, and Lucas pretty much explains that the restraining order is not fully like active yet. Like he's still in the process of putting it through and going through like the proper channels to make it active. And he's and the whole reason he's doing it is because his son um was like saying stuff about Lucas to his mother that his son shouldn't have any knowledge of. So so Lucas deduces that it had to have been Safi because he also mentions that Safi used to babysit for him. So now, so now you know that like Safi and Lucas's uh um their uh their relationship was was much uh was much more friendly and happier at some point Because if they've always had an antagonistic relationship, then why would you have that person like babysitting your kid? So so clearly something changed. So Safi, so with Safi and Lucas, and Lucas deduces that the only person that could have told his son this had to have been Safi, and Max is even like, okay, but why would your son even believe anything that she says? And Lucas pretty much says that his son really really liked Safi, so he trusted her like that much, so that's why it's like his son would believe Safi without an issue. So he does so so with that he like pretty much tells you like can like don't send to please not send it to send the picture of the restraining order to Safi. At least he said at least give me some time to get evidence that can either prove what I'm saying is true or it will prove that I'm just being paranoid and it's not true and Safi had nothing to do with anything. So so you could make like the decision whether to leave to uh to either send the picture or not send the picture. So you do either or. So in that case, you whichever you choose, I don't believe there's any huge consequences one way or the other. Um, Depending on what you choose, it does leave a funny plot hole at the in chapter 4 though, depending on what you chose. So there's that. But aside from the fact that because you're gonna need to have further interactions with Lucas. So depending on what you did with the restraining order here, those scenes can be more antagonistic or they can be more uh like friendly. Um, if Max chooses not to send the picture of the restraining order to prove to him to Lucas uh the trust, like she'll actually delete the photo in front of him so he can see that she's going to trust what he's saying. So so you can so so aside from that, now you can go to ooh, excuse me. You can go to the courtyard, I believe. Yeah, yes, I believe because the I don't believe that scene with him. I don't believe the scene with Vin that I'm thinking of. I think that happens in chapter 3. I believe. Yeah, but but yeah. So now you can go. see Vin, because maybe Vin might, uh, because you run into Vin at the in the courtyard. You run into Vin, and he's has some Abraxas students helping him look for uh, his missing phone, which you come to learn is his missing phone because you can see him doing this, and then Max can ask him what's wrong, and he tells you that his phone's missing and he's trying to find his phone. And you also come to learn that Vin is in charge of the Abraxas society club thing at school. So so he's so he's believes that he believes that Diamond took his phone, um, because in his words, he's thinking that she's trying to take his like his spot, like Diamond's trying to become like the head of the Abraxas and all that stuff. So he thinks it's a way for her to get some like dirt on him and things like that. So so he's so so Max pretty much is like, okay, but can I like talk to you, cuz I have like questions to ask you and stuff. And Vin is like, I'm looking for since I'm looking for my phone right now, I don't have the time. Maybe if I find my phone, then um I'll have some time to talk, right? So you're like, okay. Um so you can go to so at this point you can go to talk to Diamond, which she's like standing on like the other side of the courtyard. So you can see her on the other side, so you can like go to her, and the like Abraxas kids are like reluctant to go up and like talk to her about it, because they're kind of like debating amongst themselves like who's gonna go talk to her about this. So you can go to Diamond. She'll she'll be like, okay, like you could tell her like, okay, Vin thinks you took his phone, um, and stuff, and he thinks you're trying to like take over Abraxas and stuff. Um, she laughs because she's like, why would I take his phone? Like I don't like like I do want to um I do want to you know be the leader of Abraxas, but I'm gonna take it over during the upcoming elections to you know to decide who's gonna be leader of Abraxas and stuff. So so I don't need to do underhanded tactics and stuff like that. and stuff. And obviously, Vin is just projecting onto me that I took the phone because he's trying to eliminate me as a threat to leadership of Abraxas and all that stuff. So pretty much she doesn't have the phone. Um, so with the information, you can go to back to Vin and pretty much tell him and stuff, and he's like, okay. You convince him enough that that Diamond doesn't have the phone, that he pretty much like trusts you and is like, okay, so now I gotta um find it. Um, I'm gonna go back. In the meantime, I'm gonna go back uh, to my desk and kind of double check and check around there. When you get some free time, if you get some free time, you can come meet me there, and you could ask your like questions and stuff that you have. Um, I'm still kind of getting confused on where. Let me see. Where's my? Here it is. Where is? There we go. No, I'm looking for the. There we go. Oh, here we go. Here's episode 2. Where's? There we go. There's the thing. Blow it up. Oh, there it is. There we go. All right, hold on. Let me, because I was trying to avoid doing this, but it's like, okay, I gotta do it then. Okay, that's the diamond thing. That's the thing with Vin. Because you could do some of this stuff in any order that you want. Uh, okay, this is the Vin scene from the courtyard. Sometimes the orders of events can be very uh weird. Because this was the thing at the beginning. Cow skull. Okay, we talked to. Okay, so we can go. We go to Gwen's. We could go to Gwen's office. Cause cause we come to find out that cause we find it out here, right? That Gwen gets that Gwen is being accused of of something and is being taken away, like revoked from in the Alive timeline. This is happening, that she's getting um uh potentially fired because she's gonna get her like job is under review, and they're gonna do the board is gonna figure out what's to be done with her, right? and and she's being escorted off campus by security and whatnot, and she's not allowed to be on school grounds the until the review is concluded and they make a decision on what they're gonna do. What specifically Gwen is being accused of, we don't know yet. So, because we're just seeing this happen from afar, so we don't know what's going on. So, so Gwen, so Gwen gets escorted. Um, she leaves she goes to kind of slam the doors to the office shut, but it doesn't close, so it's like open a little bit, so Max can go in there and try to find out some stuff that's going on. And you come to find out, uh, um, I believe I didn't mention this before, but also a little thing is that Gwen is trans. She's a trans character. So she's a trans woman. And she's also married to a woman. Because in her office you could find her, like a picture of her and her wife and stuff like that. So, um, also she you look through her like her computer and stuff like that. Um, you also use this opportunity to jump between both, because you jump between both realities to find out information from Gwen's yeah, from Gwen's I'm alive. I'll call you in a little bit. Yeah, because this is Gwen. Yeah, from Gwen's computer. So the um in the because it's here, right? Okay, this is the Lucas part that we went over. Okay, and that's what I was gonna get to. But yeah. So looking through Gwen's computer, um you'll find that that you'll find that that Gwen, when you go to like the dead timeline to find out, like, piece together more information, um that Gwen was the one that gets Safi's book deal canceled, because Safi mentions this. I believe she mentions this earlier during an earlier conversation, that her book deal got canned for some reason, because I don't believe they specified to her exactly why they're canceling it and not uh, following through with it. And you come to find out that Gwen has like email um, correspondence with the publisher, to convince them that to cancel the book. Which in the email, Gwen gives the reason that there's some obscene material or whatnot within the book that could cause like a problem and stuff, and they're not gonna, and they wouldn't like it and stuff like that. So that's why they're canceling. That they decided to cancel the book deal, which which also happens in both timelines, because at that point you can pretty much piece together that the phone call that Safi got on the when they were all at the observatory in chapter 1 was was um was the publisher calling Safi um to pretty much like tell him that the book deal is canceled and this, that, and the third. So so now this is obviously makes Gwen even more suspicious, because it's like, okay, why did she go through such lengths to get the book deal canceled and stuff? Um, Even though also through the emails and stuff that you also find that Gwen was initially really supportive of Safi to get the book deal and stuff to begin with. So what changed for Gwen that she now is trying so hard to get it to get it canceled? So yeah. So with that, um you also print out uh copies of these emails and stuff. So you print these out so that way Max can have like this evidence and stuff. So now you go um so now you can leave pretty much. Um and it's at this point that another reason why this stuff kind of gets confusing, because one, since the game is made, um because this was also kind of an issue with True Colors also, is since the game was made all released all together in one shot from the very beginning, you kind of play the game all the way through. So certain events from certain chapters kind of blend together. So it's kind of like, okay, how do we, like, which episode come, which chapter certain things happen in, and things like that. Um, Also for this, for as far as this chapter goes, your investigation in trying to uh, talk to talk to Gwen, um, the Lucas thing, and the Vin thing is you could do these things in any order. So the game gives you some freedom in, like, who do you want to talk to first? You could talk to this person first. You could go talk to this person first. Um, Certain information you don't need. I don't believe you need to talk to certain people in a certain order because you're finding out information completely independent from each other. So, for instance, it's not like, for example, you don't need to uh, like get information from Gwen's office and then talk to Lucas or anything like that. Like you can, like, she's finding out information independently from these people and then she'll put it together later. Like it's not gonna be like a thing yet. So what you do is um you also what you do is you also find a um no, you don't find anything. Anyway, you don't find anything now at this point. You found out everything you can from the Gwen thing. So now you can go find at this point, uh, based off of what I've been saying up until this point. Now you can go back to like Yasmin's like office area and go talk to Vin. Because we already did the courthouse thing and the Lucas stuff. Because I explained some of this stuff, like, obviously out of order from when I did the playthrough through it. But, yeah, so now when you go to, um, when you go to the office, you have, you run into Vin, and he has his phone, right? And Max initially is like, "Oh, look, you found your phone." And Vin is kind of startled because he didn't know Max is behind him, and he's like, oh, my phone, yeah, I found it and whatnot. It was on. I found it. I left it like on somewhere on the desk, and I didn't notice and thought it went missing. And it's like, and Max is like, oh, okay, oh, good. And she's like, okay, so what's the problem now? Because you're clearly like upset. He's like, well, I can't get into my phone. Which Max is like, wait, how can you not get into your phone? Is it like, and he's like, I had this password um, for the phone, and I forgot the password because when I made the password, I was kind of a little like drunk or whatnot, and I can't entirely remember what it is, which is obviously a very weird. Which Max even comments to herself like how do you forget your password and stuff? And Vin is like, and Max is like, I okay. Do you remember anything about like what your password was about? And Vin is like, okay, it was kind of about such and such, right? Um, and Max is like, okay, maybe I can help you figure it out and stuff, right? And he's like, okay, good luck, but I'm not holding my breath that you'll figure it out, right? So now Max is like, okay, let me go into the dead timeline and talk to the Vin in that timeline, and maybe I could figure out the password from him. And you go over, and Vin is sitting on the little couch that they have to the side where people wait, you know, a little waiting area to see Yasmin, right? And he's sitting down there. He has some tarot cards at the table, and he's drinking some liquor. So he's a little tipsy because he's been drinking a couple of them. To the point where Max, when she goes up to him, she's even commenting like, have you been drinking and stuff? So he's noticeably a little, eh. But yeah. He so you talk to him to try to figure out the password. Um, if you did the package uh favor for him in chapter 1, you can choose to call in if you don't want to go through the rigmarole of trying to figure out the password. You can call in your favor here and blatantly just tell him to tell you what the password is. And because you're calling in the favor, he'll reluctantly like tell you. So you could find it out that way. Um, if you want to find out yourself, uh, he kind of gives you. You can kind of get a little hint from him in conversation that it's related to like this kind of like literary. I believe it like it's a literary figure or something that he likes and someone who he kind of admires a little bit or whatever, and it's related to that. So you can pretty much go to the library, go over to the library, and figure out with the hints, figure out like who it is and all that stuff and things like that. And that's how you figure it out. Um, Also, in your conversation with Vin, uh, I'll mention it here. I'll mention it here because we didn't. Because I'm not gonna mention it later. Uh, in every interaction with Vin that you have had up until this point, because I didn't mention it because it's not entirely important to the grand scheme of the plot of the game anyway, is Vin is the male love interest of of the game. And he's he is aggressively flirty with Max in every interaction that they have. Like right out the gate. Like he's really trying to get into Max's pants so much, which is very like uncomfortable because it's like, okay, that like your coworkers and stuff, and it's very weird. Like I don't really. Plus, I don't really enjoy the romance, the potential romance that they have anyway. It's very uncomfortable and weird, especially with how aggressive he is about it. And also, during your conversation with Vin in the courtyard, you um you can mention the cow skull thing, right? To him, and and then kind of in passing says some details about the cow skull thing that's suspicious because Max is like, I didn't like you do tell him about the cow skull, but you didn't go into detail about it. But Vin, in passing, talking about it, kind of adds some detail into it that Max is like, I didn't mention that to him. So how does he know about it? Plus, you also know from Safi that she didn't. That I believe the only people she mentioned this to, I think, is I believe her mother, maybe Moses, and then obviously telling Max at the bar. So she clearly didn't tell Vin anything. So it's like, okay, so why does he know about this? Plus his reaction to it is very like dismissive, pretty much. Like he doesn't think much of it. So that's also kind of weird and suspicious. So in any case, um, you get however you want to get the password. You get the password. You go back to the Alive timeline, and you find that Vin has left, so he's not there anymore. But the phone is sitting on the desk. So Max is like, okay, Vin isn't here. I know the password, so fuck it. Let me go. Let me go through the phone and see what I can find. And she goes into the phone, and you don't see her, but she's like swiping through the phone, and he's like, oh, it's just a bunch of like vain selfies that he takes of himself, right? Because obviously Vin is very high on himself, so his ego is really through the roof. Like you can't even see it. It goes so high off camera. But in any case, he in any case he you go through the phone and you come across a very important photo, and this photo you do see, and it's a photo of Vin with Safi in bed together. It's not an it's not a very explicit photo. It's pretty much Vin taking a selfie, right? He has the phone like and right behind him is Safi in the bed. Vin is shirtless. You could see that he's shirtless. And Safi is laying in the bed in her underwear and she's sticking the middle finger at the camera. So 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 now we know that, like, oh, Vin and Safi had a deeper relationship than I thought they had. So they were a lot closer than they let on, type of deal. And obviously they're not together anymore because Vin is now just aggressively like flirting with Max at every chance he fucking gets. And Vin keeps doing this even if you keep shutting him down in his advancements and things like that. He'll keep doing it. So he doesn't really take no for an answer, but it's very creepy. And then also now that Vin is labeled as a another suspect now, it makes potentially going in a relationship with him even more odd. And even by the end of the game, the relationship would still potentially be odd. And in some cases even worse with what find out and things later. So I personally never really go with that route. Potentially the only reason you would go the route with Vin's relationship is just to get like the achievement, the trophy, or whatever of going down that relationship path. Because Amanda and Vin both have trophies and achievements attached to going all the way in those relationships. So that's like the only reason you would probably do it. But from a story perspective, his romance route is pretty meh. So, and creepy. So it's like, whatever. So in any case, you find out all that information, and then where do you go from here? Okay, so these two events happen in this episode. Okay, so what ends up happening is you you go to now you leave the building, and when you leave the building back to the courtyard, you encounter Reggie and Loretta, and Reggie is kind of having a panic attack because he says he saw something at the Overlook area, and he's like freaking out over it, right? And everyone's like gathered around because he's kind of causing a scene, and Loretta's trying to calm him down, and Max goes over, obviously to see what the hell's going on. Loretta sees Max and kind of calls her over because it's like can you try to help me here? And Max pretty much disperses the crowd, gets the crowd to leave, and then she wants to find out what's going on with Reggie, but because of the investigation that Max is doing, she needs to talk to him in private. So she pretty much tells Loretta to go see if you can get like Reggie something to drink or something to like calm him down, right? And while Loretta's going to do that, um, she asks Reggie, okay, like what's going on, um, and what did you see? Because you're saying you saw something at the low overlook. So what exactly did you see? And Reggie's like, okay, you're gonna think I'm crazy or whatnot and stuff. And Max is like, what did you see? Um, he's like, I went to the overlook and stuff, and while I was there, I saw I saw myself. And Max is like, what do you mean? And he's like, I saw like another me, like this, like a weird apparition that looked like me, and it was doing like it was just doing normal stuff, and I could see it and kind of like, and I believe hear like it talking about things, and that like freaked me the fuck out, and then I like ran, and that's why, that's when Loretta saw me, and that's when you like hear, and it's at that point Loretta pretty much like comes back with a I believe like a cup of water or something. And Max is like, okay, Reggie, um, Loretta, can you take Reggie to like the nurse's office to just have him checked out and stuff and things? And Loretta's like, okay, okay. So Loretta gives Reggie the water, and then they both leave, right? So now Max is like, okay, now I need to go uh, to check the to go to the overlook, right, and check. Um, is there any other finer details I'm missing here? Okay. This is the because you're in the dead timeline for this. So now you have to go to so since you have to go to the overlook, you can't go to the overlook because there's like security there, because it's pretty much a like a crime scene. So you pretty much have to use your powers to kind of finagle your way around the overlook. And okay, so you do. So this isn't the same thing, but yeah. So you go to the so you sneak your way into the overlook by jumping back and forth between the two timelines to get past things, right? Um, to like avoid the security guard that's blocking the way, get past him, get up there. And when you get up there in the alive uh, timeline, right? You find that Gwen is there, like she's in the Overlook, right? She's at the Overlook, So you find her there. You obviously have to talk to her. Um, so you talk to her, and you find out from her that she's being accused of dealing drugs to the students, and she's get obvious, and that's why she's being put on leave right now, because they're reviewing the evidence and trying to make sure what it is. Um, Even though Gwen kind of tells you that this is kind of like a formality, because she already knows what they're going to decide, because she's seen the evidence, and she has a USB stick that has video evidence, like surveillance evidence from the cameras, that shows Gwen like dealing with dealing the like drugs and stuff. But Gwen is very adamant that it wasn't her, even though she's seen the evidence. It's like, but that wasn't me, because Gwen's like, I don't know who it is, but somebody that looks exactly like me is in this footage. So Max is like, okay, that's very weird what's going on. So she gets so she starts to um she takes the USB. Gwen takes the USB. um she lights the nearby garbage can on fire, which who does that remind me of? Reminds me of a certain someone here, of setting garbage cans on fire. um and is going to, and puts the USB in it because she wants to burn it, because she kind of like lost hope, because she's like, how can I prove I didn't do it when someone who looks like me is in this video footage? So she's like, fuck it, I'm gonna burn this symbolically, just to um like let out the anger and stuff, right? And Max, meanwhile, is like, I could use, like, in her mind, she's like, if I had that footage, I could probably like look through it and maybe find out something. So you can either, so at this point, you can either let the USB burn, right? Let it burn, or you can quickly grab the USB out of the garbage can, right? Um, so either what, depending on what you do, if you let it burn, then that kind of improves like your relationship with Gwen a little bit. If you take it out of the, if you take the USB, then that makes Gwen a little mad or whatnot. Um, but in the end, she lets you be like, take the USB, because you even tell her that, like, that let me look through the footage and stuff, and maybe I could potentially find out something that may prove your innocence and stuff, right? And Gwen is like, okay, whatever. I don't think you went. You are, but go ahead, whatever, right? So she either way she leaves, and then from there you get a phone call for from Moses that Moses has a big oh no, oh no, you don't. I'm jumping ahead a little bit by accident, but either way, um, so after you do the Gwen part, now you can jump over to the dead timeline. So when you jump over to the dead timeline, um, obviously, you know, there's little evidence markers and chalk outlines of where, you know, pieces of evidence were, and there's a tarp laid over the ground, which is where Safi's body was, right? So what you end up doing is you, oh, excuse me, you take the tarp and uncover it, and you're expecting um, and what you're expecting to find is just, you know, a chalk outline of the body, right? Normal stuff. But what you find instead is, yes, there's an outline of where the body was, but it's a full outline of a bunch of flowers in the shape of where Safi's body was. So Max is like, what the fuck is this? like why why is there a bunch of flowers in the shape of Safi's body? It was like weird. Um and it's at that point that Loretta uh finds you, right? Um and she's and Max is pretty much like, okay, thank you for at least thank you for helping with the Reggie thing, right? And Loretta's like kind of like, oh, like, hey, no problem and stuff like that. It's even more cordial if you did her questioning thing and did all that. So she's even more friendly with you in these conversations if you did that. But either way, you ooh, excuse me, you um you have another conversation with Loretta here. Loretta bends down and looks at the outline of flowers and stuff, and Max even's like, "What do you think?" and stuff, and she's like, I was like, "This is weird" and stuff, and Max even asks Loretta like, "Why are you so invested in finding out what's going on? Like why are you interested in this?" And Loretta pretty much says like I don't like it when things don't make sense. Like none of this stuff is adding up. Like this is very weird and no one is really uh like trying to get to the bottom of it really, or nobody is really making any headway, right? Like having any success in figuring shit out. So she pretty much takes it upon herself to try to figure out what's going on. And it's at this point that you can, if you're in a good enough standing with like Loretta at this point, you can kind of uh like uh sort of team up and like help Loretta find out some things. And in return, Loretta will give you like some information. And this is where we mention like Maya again, um, with her suicide, and she's like, I find it weird that the Maya did suicide, did the suicide, and then now Safi is is being labeled as suicide and stuff, and Loretta's like, none of this makes sense. And she also mentions that I believe she mentions here that Maya and Safi were friends. Um, so now you have a connection between the two, which is what makes Loretta even more suspicious about what's going on, because it's like Maya does commit suicide, and then now um, Safi, who was Maya's best friend, supposedly her best friend, right, is also committed suicide. Like obviously we know that isn't suicide, but from their perspective, it's like, okay, it's being labeled a suicide, so something weird is happening. Um, so with that information, you're like, all right, I'm gonna figure out what Max is like. I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna figure out and stuff, and you find out anything, let me know and stuff like that, right? So Loretta leaves. Max starts to leave, and it's at this point that you get your Moses phone call. And this is the um, final little lead up to the end of the chapter. Because now because Moses says it's an emergency, right? So at this point, you pretty much cut to Moses's office, which is in the observatory building. So you go there, and you see that he's in a that he's sitting outside his office area, which the office area isn't his own like exclusive office area. It's like a group office area where there's like other teachers that have like their tables and stuff, like desks set up around. Um, so he's sitting outside of it, and Max goes up to him, and she's like, okay, what's going on? And she's like, and Moses is like, I'm in really big trouble, Max. And 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 she's like, okay, what did you do? And he pretty much tells you that he took Safi's camera from the crime scene, and obviously Max is like, why the fuck would you do that? I was like, that's tampering with evidence and stuff. Like, you could get yourself in like some really big trouble. Um, and Moses is like, I know it was a really dumb decision, but I didn't want the last picture of Safi that Safi took to just sit in like evidence and whatnot, and just not be seen. Because in the observatory meeting that y'all had at get together that y'all had in chapter 1, Safi took a picture of all three of you together, right? Like a happy little picture, which is the picture that Moses is referring to here. and Moses is like, I hid it in the offices, like I have it hidden in the room, and conveniently, Moses has had the room locked, and I believe he also hid the his card. Like he's pretending he lost it. Like he doesn't have the card to get into the room, right? So so at the same time, you would notice that there's a guy down the hall that's on his phone, right? And it's at that point that this guy gets off the phone and approaches Moses and Max, right? And he introduces himself as Detective Alderman, right? And he's he's the one that's in charge of investigating the Safi thing. So gets Safi's case is being handled by Alderman here, which is also someone that you've got hinted at earlier in chapter one, because when you go to Yasmin's office and have a conversation with her in her office, you can actually see Alderman's business card on her desk. So now you actually, like I said in the previous video, you will meet him, and this is how you meet him. And he is a very hard ass detective. Like he's very like aggressive. Like he's not very nice. um um he also says that the he was on the phone with I believe someone else, trying to get someone else to get a card so he can get into the room, because he was talking to Moses, because Moses, obviously he's a person of interest because he knew Safi and all that stuff, right? And also they know that the camera is missing. So they're also trying to talk to everyone to try to find out where the camera is, right? Um, and he also wants to talk to Max. So but he wants to finish talking with Moses first, right? Especially after he gets uh, gets into the room and conducts his search and stuff like that, right? So he's like, okay, so that would have to wait until I'm able to get into the room, because obviously he wants to talk to everybody one on one in private and stuff, right? So he's not gonna interview Max right now. He wants to finish up with Moses first. So it's at this point that Max, excuses herself, and she's like, okay, I need to get into that office and find the camera, right? So what ends up happening is you find a little thing so that way you can cross back into the alive timeline, right? So you cross into the alive timeline, and the office is open. You go in, and Moses is there, and he's putting together this big telescope, right? So he's putting a telescope together. Um, you also go past a Christmas tree, and on the Christmas tree, there's a hot dog man ornament on the Christmas tree that when you go past it, it's motion censored to like start up like a uh, like a song type of thing. There's a reason I'm mentioning it because you're gonna have to use it later. Actually, you're gonna have to use it in a few minutes. So, you go to Moses and whatnot. He's putting the thing together, right? You help him put it together, right? You help him finish putting it together, and you also kind of talk to him about like where like if you were trying to hide something, where would if hide something in this room, where would you hide it and things like that. So you're pretty much um um like where he would hide it, and he kind of pretty much tells you, and he pretty much shows you where it is, like a little cabinet or something. He like hides a little like cooking thing that he's kind of not supposed to have, but he has it anyway and stuff like that. And he has like a key for a little cabinet that he puts it in, right? So just like the Lucas briefcase thing. So now that you know where it is and stuff, he leaves the key on top of the cabinet, right? Because he he goes to clean out the little thing he uses to cook some stuff in secret, right? And because he's gonna make something for Max, but the other like teachers, observatory teachers, like played a little prank on him, and they filled the thing with something. So he's like, okay, uh, I need to go and clean this out, right? And just wait for me while I do this, right? Um, so at that point, now that he's out of the room, you take the key. Now you take the key that he left on top of the cabinet. You take it, and you go into the dead timeline. So now that you're in the room, and you use the key on the cabinet uh that he would use to hide stuff, right? So you open it, and there's no camera in there, obviously, because even I initially was pretty much like why would he hide it in an obvious spot, right? So instead, what you find in there is like a cryptic little note, as a reminder to himself of where he hid the camera, right? So at this point, you got to go through like a little puzzle thing because it deals with like constellations and stuff. So you have to figure out what constellation he's talking about, and then you have to light this little like thing of constellation stuff, right? And you find out that one of the lights that shows where the constellation that he's talking about is shining on this little like vent, right? And it's like, oh, okay, he hid it in this vent, and there's a problem though. It's there's this big thing that's on like a paddle of like a bunch of stuff. And what it is, if you like are paying attention and stuff, it's the pieces and stuff for the big telescope that Moses is building in the Alive timeline, right? It's it's the pieces for that because obviously dead Moses has not gotten around to it because he's still dealing with Safi being dead and stuff. So he hasn't been in the mood to put the telescope together. So pretty much he's using that as a way to hide the vent where he's hiding the camera. So you have to move this heavy equipment to the side, right? And as you're doing that, as you're moving it to the side, like trying to move it to the side, that's when Alderman comes into the room because now he has uh, the card or whatnot to get in, right? So now you're like, fuck, I need to get into get the camera, but it's gonna make noise, right? So I need to distract Alderman somehow where he's not gonna see me move this thing to the side and get the and get the camera, right? So I need him to get away. So at this point, you have to figure it out. So you have to first go back to the Alive timeline, and you can grab the little hot dog man thing from the tree, bring it back to the dead timeline, and then now you gotta put it in an area where it will make noise and make Alderman go all the way to the other side of the area so that way you can move the thing and get the camera. So what you do is you so the observatory area has a little lounge area in the office, but you pretty much like go upstairs to do it. So it has a little thing to go upstairs and lounge at, right? So you have to. So Max has to work her way and avoid Alderman, like sneak around him to get up there and place the thing there, and then you know uh, make it make noise, and then draw him over. So you have to sneak around him, right? And and the and there's a little Easter egg here that if you get caught while sneaking past him, Max will subconsciously rewind um time to the beginning of where you do like the sneaking part, right? And Max will even comment of like, wait a minute, did I just do what I think I did? So, which is why I say subconsciously, like she did it kind of like out of instinct and a reaction. So she didn't mean to do that. So it's a fun, it's like a little Easter egg that kind of also hints at, like firmly establishes even more that Max's powers are not gone. Like they're there, but she's obviously like choosing not to use them, but they're still active. And will it's instinctually still work. So hence this the scene here. So in any case, she goes she puts the thing on the ornament there, uh makes it make noise, jumps to the other timeline to get back uh to where the camera is, and then jumps back over, and then tries to move the uh, the equipment over, but it's like, okay, this is still kind of heavy, and if I continue to try to do this, it's gonna make even more noise, right? And then she also starts to feel like this glow, see and feel like this glow on the equipment, and she's like, okay, what the hell is this? So she touches the equipment and focuses. And when she focuses, the equipment like disappears. And what ends up happening is the fully built um, telescope appears in the room, in the same spot that it's in the alive timeline. So it appears in the room. Max is like, "What the fuck?" And even Alderman sees it because the poofing makes noise. So Alderman comes down and he's like, "What the fuck is this?" Like he's staring at it because he's like, "This was not here before. Like where the fuck did this come from?" So now Max takes the opportunity. Like both of them are surprised, but since Alderman is distracted, that's when Max takes the opportunity to quickly open the vent and take the camera out of it. And then it's from there also that she poofs back over to the alive timeline, right? Um, and when she poofs back over. She makes sure she has the camera on her, right? And then she leaves the office. And as she's leaving the office, that's when Moses is coming back. And she pretty much tells him like, I'm sorry, something came up, I have to leave, right? And Moses is like, okay, whatever. And then he goes back into his office, and you don't see him, but you hear his reaction that he is shocked that the telescope is gone. So I'll explain it here um because Max will explain it in the next in chapter 3 in the next chapter, but I'll explain it here anyway. That what Max did was she replaced she swapped the objects because they're the same object. So what she did was the unbuilt one, the unbuilt telescope got swapped with the built telescope from the alive timeline. So while alive timeline Moses was shocked, is because all the pieces of the telescope is back in the packaging again. So that's what she did. She swapped the objects, which is a handy ability, and it's also an ability that only comes up again once. So it really only happens one other time in a significant way, and that's only at the end of chapter 3. So we still has a little bit of ways to go for that to come up again. So with that, Max goes back to the dead timeline and uh, comes up to back to Moses, right? And she pretty much shows Moses that like, I got the camera, and Moses is like, how the hell did you do that, right? And she puts the camera back away in her little bag that she's always carrying around with her. So she puts it right back. She And it's at that point that Alderman comes back out from the office, and he's clearly still like shocked and surprised about the telescope thing. And it's at that point that he's like, okay, and he calls over Max, right? Um, and he takes Max into the office, and they sit at one of the desks off to the side, and he pretty much like does a short little interview to Max, pretty much going over like the case and whatnot, and pretty much asking for Max's cooperation, right? And he pretty much offers Max his card, right? And you can either accept it or not. If you do accept the card, that kind of makes it a little confrontational with Moses, because it kind of makes you suspicious for him, because he's like, oh, you're trying to like sell me out or something like that, and things like that. which you can quickly like smooth over with him later, where it's like, don't worry about it, stuff like that, right? Or you could just flat out like not accept Alderman's thing, which will keep your friendlier relationship with Moses and stuff anyway. So so uh, so either way, from there, Moses and Max can take their leave, right? Like they'll leave, and uh, they go to Max's house because they need to get uh, to get Safi's picture off the camera, right? So she's like, okay, let's get the picture off the camera. So pretty much, Moses takes the camera down to Max's dark room that Max has set up in the little basement area of her house, right? So he goes down there. Max is like, "I'll join you. I'll join you later. I just need to gather my thoughts and whatnot before." So what you end up can do here is you can finish solving the Abraxas cube that you were trying to help Reggie with in chapter 1. And when you solve it, it turns out to be like an Abraxas pin. So I guess, since you solved it, you're accepted into the Abraxas Society, and here's a pin to prove that you're a member, right? Which I'll say now doesn't really amount to a lot. The only thing it really amounts to is, I believe, certain NPCs will reference that Max is like wearing the pin or something. Even though physically, on the physical model of Max, the pin is nowhere to be seen. So it's kind of just a reference. So it's like, okay, I guess she's wearing it, even though I don't see it on her. But anyway, also this is where like the cat DLC would be, because earlier you hear like a cat in like some bushes or whatnot, and then you're like, okay, whatever. And then now here is where the cat is meowing at the back door. And then from there is when you open the door, and then you pretty much decide what the cat looks like, and then the cat comes in, and then you decide what to call the cat, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna you're probably a stray, so I'm gonna ask around and see if anyone's missing a cat, right? In the meantime, you stay here and whatnot and stuff, and then you could get the cat some food and stuff and things like that, and also put some like stuff away and whatnot, so that way the cat doesn't mess up anything. But in any case, you do that. After you do all that, is when you also take all the evidence you have, you lay it out on the little coffee table, and then you're like, okay, this you go over your evidence that you have. This is all you have so far, and you're like, all right. And then you put it all away in like a little box and stuff, and you put it to the side. and then from there you go to join Moses in the basement, right? So you go to join him in the basement. You hook up the camera to the computer so that way you can get the you could see the pictures and get them off the camera, right? And Moses is initially like starting to get cold feet a little bit. He's like I don't know how to feel. Do I really want to, see the picture and whatnot? It'll probably make me upset or whatnot. And Max is like, "Don't worry, I'm here with you. We're here for each other, so don't worry, right?" And then they go to open the pictures, and they're like, "Oh, this is like a really good picture." And then they're going through some stuff, and then they get to the picture that Safi took at the observatory, and they're like, "Oh, look how happy we were. We're such a good friends and whatnot, and we're all good." And then they're like, they notice, they're like, "Wait a minute. There's one more picture that Safi took here." And they're like, "Hmm." So she sneaked an extra photo. He was like, "Hmm, the sly little Safi being sneaky." So let's see what the picture is, right? So they go to the picture. You don't see the picture yet. They don't show you the picture, but immediately Max is like, "What the hell?" And Moses immediately gets up from his chair and he's just in shock. He's like, "What?" He's like, "What the fuck?" And then it's at this point that they show you what the picture is. And it's a picture of Max with a gun to her hand pointed directly at well, it's obviously at Safi because Safi's the one taking the picture, because the gun is pointed directly at the photo, like straight. So immediately Moses is like, "So you're the one who killed her and stuff. So it was you who killed her." And we've been playing at Max as Max this whole time. So it's not me. So you can pretty much hilariously, like, obviously deny that it's you. And one of the hilarious explanations Max gives is that it has to be deep fake or whatnot, and it's which is like, okay, whatever. um, and then you can try to explain things to Moses, and Moses is like, "All right." Well, he doesn't say "all right," but he gives the gesture of like, "Go ahead, try." And you can actually tell him here that you have like powers, but no matter what he says, what you tell him, he's gonna um he's gonna go to leave. And obviously you try to um continue to explain things, and he pretty much tells you to stay the fuck away from me, right? And then obviously Max is like, "All right, we'll let him go." And then he leaves, and obviously Max is like distraught because she's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then she goes back to look at the photo, and she's determined to be like, "Okay, what the like, how the fuck is this happening?" Right? And that's where the chapter ends. So the chapter ends um with a zoom in on the photo and whatnot, and it's like, okay, so is Max the killer. And another thing about the photo, because it's something you observe with the photo, is Max is obviously sad in the photo as she's holding the gun, and she also has tear marks running down her cheeks. It's something that you have to like really like look at the photo to see, because it's not entirely noticeable. Like you can notice the expressions on her face, but the tears is something that you have to like focus on to really see. So even if Max is the one with the gun in the photo, it seems like she's doing it very reluctantly, because she doesn't look happy or anything to do this. So there's a bigger story going on as to what this photo means and what's going on here. And that's pretty much where it ends. That's where the chapter ends, with a very big cliffhanger and stuff, and it's really shocking. Um, which, yet again, if you paid the $80 for the Ultimate Edition and got to play these first two chapters 2 weeks ahead of the full game coming out, you had so many questions on what the fuck was going on, and it's like I would have to wait 2 weeks to get any real answers on what's happening here. So, um, so yeah, the whole point of this, the reason they gave for doing the whole 2 weeks early thing, is because they wanted to have a similar like theory discussion thing going on in between uh kind of like what happened in the earlier games, where episodes were released every couple of months. So within those couple of month break in between episodes, fans would generally like come up with theories and stuff of what's happening, react to um, endings to episodes, what's gonna happen now, and things like that. So they were trying to do that, which was not the best way to do it, because it's like, okay, if you were gonna do this, then you should have just did an episodic format then, instead of trying to do this money this money gouging way of doing it. It was very stupid. Um, so hold on a minute. Uh, oh, so so not the best idea. Hopefully, it's something that will not be tried again. It's definitely an experiment, but an experiment that was resoundingly rejected. So, so if you're gonna do something like this, you should just do an episodic structure like the earlier games, instead of doing it this way, because all you wound up doing was pissing off a lot of people. So so yeah, don't do that again. Um, so in any case, uh, we will put, where will we put chapter 2? So chapter 2 we will put uh we'll keep it in A tier. We'll we'll do it this way. We'll put chapter 2 above chapter 1. Mainly because chapter 1 has the big cloud of Chloe hanging over it like a lot. So at least with chapter 2, we've kind of already ripped off that band-aid, moved past it, and we're actually moving forward with the real plot of the game and delving deeper into the plot of the game and experimenting and getting to use the new powers and all that stuff, and figure out how they work and do some little like puzzles and stuff with the powers and things like that. So overall, that's a better positive. So hence why I and the shocking ending to the second chapter with the photo of Max with the gun. So definitely gets a lot bigger points there. So so that's where that goes. Also, a little thematic tidbit with the names of Double Exposure's chapters. They're all named. Even Double Exposure itself, the actual name of the game, are all named after different photography techniques. So, so that's a fun little quirk for Max's photography career and all that stuff. So, so there's that. That's also another reason why some of these chapter names are gonna be hard for me to pronounce anyway. So I'm not even gonna bother with some of them. So that's why I'm not even gonna. Some of them I'm not even gonna do. But either way, that's where we put chapter 2. And with that, because this episode went on a little longer, because a lot of this episode, as I said, was more of a tutorial on how the powers work and all that stuff. There was a lot to do in this chapter, so there was a lot to go over. So for now, we'll leave this episode with we'll leave this video here with this episode, and we'll pick up with episode 3 next time. Chapter 3 next time. And hopefully we'll see how far we can get next time. So with that, this is JR as always, signing off, and I will catch you all in the next one. Later.